Hello everyone and welcome to the PyCalc Python classes. Today our first video is on how to install Python and run it locally on your system. And I will be showing you for the Windows operating system. So those users who will be using a Windows operating system, this video is for them. So let's start. For installing Python from the web, open your Google Chrome or any other browser that you think is suitable for you. Type Python. Press enter. You will see the official website of Python, that's python.org. Click on this and move to the download section. Here you will see download the latest version of for Windows and download Python 3.9.4 version. So click on this button and the setup will be installed. Once we click on this installer, a window will prompt this window, Python 3.9.4 64-bit setup. Now you have to just click on install now, but before that the most important thing that we have to do is add Python 3.9 to path, and this is especially important when you will be making applications using Python programming language, and we will talk about this a bit more detail later, but for now this is the most important thing that you have to do here. And obviously install now is the primary thing to run Python on your system. So let's proceed with that. Click on install. You will be prompted, since you are the administrator, to allow Python to make any changes to your system. So we'll click yes, and then the installation will start. We shall wait for a minute or two to complete the installation process of Python programming language, and then we'll move to how to open that. So Python is installed on our system, and this is the last window that shows us that setup was successful. Now we have to click close and then open Python. So now since Python is installed locally on our system, we can open the Python IDLE to start programming in Python. Now what's IDLE in Python? IDLE is called Integrated Development Environment, and it bundles all the default implementations of the language. So we shall move into this implementations part and all in later videos, but for now you have to just remember this, that IDLE bundles all the implementations, or in other words default implementations of the language that you are using, in this case Python. So we will now open IDLE. In the search bar type IDLE and then click on open. It will take some time to open IDLE on our system. And here it is. IDLE is now open on our system. We can now program in Python in IDLE shell 3.9.4. In this way, you have to install Python on your system so that you can run it locally. In our next video, we shall learn how to code our first program in Python IDLE shell. In between, we have one more thing to say. If you do not have Python installed on your system, or even if you have, how to check that in Windows PowerShell. So open Windows PowerShell and type Python -- version. So this is a checkpoint where you can check whether Python is installed locally on your system or not. If you are using a Linux computer, then Python should have come with your operating system, but it usually is an older version. In that case, you have to upgrade Python to the latest version, that's currently 3.9.4. We shall move into this in the later part of our course, but for now Python space -- version is the check for seeing whether you have Python installed on your system or not. This is a sample. Before installation of Python, I typed Python -- version in Windows PowerShell, and it showed Python is not recognized as the name of our cmd-let function. So it shows an error here. This means that Python isn't installed on our system, and that's why it cannot recognize Python as a name of our cmd-let function, or in command prompt it cannot recognize the word Python. Now since we have already installed on our system, let's check whether it gives an error or not. So once we press enter, it again says it's an error there. So now we open command prompt and we shall see whether Python is installed in our system or not. So we will type Python dash dash version. So it's Python dash dash version. This shows us that Python 3.9.4 is installed on our system, and this acts as a check whether you have Python installed on your system. If you are using a Linux computer, Python already comes in your system but with an older version. To check this, you can use the same syntax, Python dash dash version, and you will see the version here also. So it acts as a check whether you have Python installed in your system, as well as you can see which version of Python is installed on your system. So this marks the ending of installing Python and running it locally on your system, and checking in command prompt which version you have, and if you hadn't installed Python yet, or your OS has Python installed with it already, which version it shall have, using the Python dash dash version command in command prompt. In our next video, we shall be learning to code our first program in Python, that's Hello World.